back to the channel. So recently I watched Michael Romeo's channel. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It's a fantastic Booktube channel. He's a really nice guy. And he did a video. It was my 10 lowest rated books according to Goodreads. Now I thought I would do a kind of an entry in the same vein. And also I might follow it up with my 10 highest rated books according to Goodreads. I think this is a really interesting experiment. Now, I don't put everything I read onto Goodreads, like, especially not stuff I read years and years ago, but most of my kind of recent reads or rereads are on there. So it was quite interesting to go through and see what effectively other people don't like that I have read. At number 10 of my lowest rated books by Goodreads was A Joint. It's a tie. 3.69 out of 5. It was Lord of the Flies by William Golding and The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. Now, I gave both those books 3.5 stars. I think I can understand they're not perfect novels for me. I think Lord of the Flies has been done better and before by other kind of novelists, though it is a great book. I think The Great God Pan leaves a lot up to the imagination. You know, it's not the longest novel, it's about 100 pages, I believe. And it relies a lot on the reader to kind of fill in the blanks. So I can understand why it won't be massively impressive. What I would say is I don't disagree with a 3.69. My issue is more with the fact that 3.69 on Goodreads is seen as not a good rating. Now, I think 3.69 is a very good book. That's the kind of a 3.5 and up is very good for me personally. So I'm not upset with the rating they got, but I wouldn't put either of these books in my bottom 10. It's definitely not. And the same goes for number 9. I do not agree with this. Just a spoiler warning. I agree with 5 out of the 10, I believe. So a 50% rate kind of agreement with Goodreads on these. One I don't agree with is New Arabian Nights by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, Goodreads gives it a 3.68 out of 5. And I actually gave it a 3.6. So again, the rating isn't off. This is a very good book. I gave it a very good rating. Goodreads just doesn't think that's a very good rating. Effectively, it would be nowhere near my bottom 10. There you go. At number 8 is Deadly Game by Michael Caine, a book I read 8-9 months ago, whenever it came out, around Christmas, I think. Goodreads gives it a 3.57. I'd say it's a little generous. I gave it a 2.9. For me, 2.5 is kind of, it's a bit, you know, bland. It's a little, for me personally, I want all my books to kind of rate up from a 2.5 upwards if I can. I gave it a 2.9 because I did believe it was entertaining. It did have a strong author's voice, but other than that, it was very by the numbers, predictable, the twists and everything. I agree with it being at number 8. I don't agree with the rating. I think that's kind of overrated. At number 7 is The Forgotten Planet by Murray Leinster. Now I can see where a lot of Goodreads kind of readers have issue with this. It's a fix-up novel that isn't fixed up properly, effectively. It's very disjointed. I found that kind of, it hurt the reading experience. Goodreads gives it a 3.56. I'll actually give it a 2.2. It would make my bottom 10 reads from this Goodreads list. So I do agree with it being there. At number 6 is The True History of the Strange Brigade. So this is a novelization of a video game that is based on like a B movie. Which also might be based on it's a pulp comic strip, I believe. So either way, it's effectively very obscure. It's a short story collection that is very, very inconsistent. I love 2 of these stories in the collection, and a few of the others I didn't like. I gave it a 2.7 because there was enough entertaining stories in there, enough high points to kind of redeem it. Goodreads gives it a 3.48. I think it's a little generous. But that happens with aggregator sites. You don't get a lot of low scores, you don't get a lot of high scores, you get a lot of stuff in the middle. I do agree with it being in the 10 in the middle spaces. Seems about right. At number 5, the book I agree with the least on this list, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Goodreads gives it a 3.43. that's a travesty in my opinion. I gave it a 4.2. Heart of Darkness is fantastically written. It's very thought-provoking. It's a classic read. Many kind of well-respected outlets would have that in their top 100 novels, and I wouldn't disagree with them. The issues here is a lot of Goodreads readers will possibly struggle with it because of its Victorian use of language. They possibly not enjoy it because they were forced to read it maybe at school or college. And thirdly, the way, effectively native Africans are treated in the novel is very poor, which, the author is very clear to point out, but that does make it a difficult read. So I understand the reasons why this would score lower, even though I do not agree with it being in bottom 10 at all. At number 4 on this list is 123 by Paul Kane. Now that is a pulp short story. I agree with it being on the list. Pretty much perfect placing for it. Goodreads gives it a 3.38. I can see that. It is entertaining. It's short, so it doesn't, waste a lot of your time. You read it in one sitting. The pacing was off. It didn't really deliver the kind of climax that I was expecting from the novel. I gave it 2.7. But yeah, 4th makes sense. Number 3 is The Last Man by Mary Shelley. Now I can see, again, why readers would put this here. Goodreads gives it a 3.37. I gave it a 3-star. I think that's a fair rating for the book, to be fair. It's very well written. It's very interesting. I wouldn't say it's necessarily an important novel, but it was doing some stuff for the first time. It's not a bad novel. The issue is it is very dry. It's quite dense. It's quite long. It's not an easy read. A lot of people find this a difficult read, and I think that's probably why it scores low. I wouldn't have it in my bottom 10 books, so I don't agree with it being in there, but I understand the rating. I think the rating is actually quite fair. It's just that I think, 3.37 is quite a decent rating, so there you go. Number 2 is the Trolltooth Wars by Steve Jackson. So this is a sword and sorcery novel based in the fighting fantasy universe, but it's not a choose your own adventure. It is a straight prose novel. Goodreads gives it a 3.31. I've no issue with that. I'd probably say it was a 3-star novel myself. It's very pulpy, it's very campy, it's very sword and sorcery, but that's kind of what I was after at the time. I remember when this book came out, and being a young lad, that was definitely what I was after. I wouldn't put it in my bottom 10, but I suppose it wouldn't be too far, away, 3 stars. And number 1, I do agree with this, I understand this, is Dark Souls Mask of Vindication by Michael A. Stackpole of Star Wars canon fame. Goodreads gives this a 2.97, which if you look at Goodreads, anything that scores a 2 point something, it hasn't landed very well with the people of Goodreads. You'll see lots of 1-star reviews in there. My rating was a 2.5. I thought this was bang average, to be honest. It's a novel where the first 100 pages made me want to DNF it quite aggressively, but the second half of the novel redeemed itself. There's a 3-star novel in there somewhere. It's just that Michael A. Stackpole just failed to put it onto the page effectively. I think it would have done better if it was disconnected from the Dark Souls kind of universe, or from the IP, and been its own thing. Yeah, so I would not recommend that book. I do agree with it being on the top 10. Those are my top 10 based on the books I've added to my Goodreads list. Let me know if there's anything in your top 10 that you find really, really surprising. I will be bringing out the 10 highest rated. I've looked at the list, it's not as interesting. I'm going to throw it out there. So if it doesn't get as many views, I totally understand. This is much more interesting looking at the bad books. But I will put kind of highest rated books out next week, and we'll see where that goes.